Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I'll be taking us through a very important section, especially for NGOs who are seeking for donor funds or who are providing accountability for the donor funds, most especially to avoid disqualification of costs, which of course results in repayment of the already incurred costs or the already spent funds, which we call refunds to the donor. So the most important among other things, and I will be breaking down in the different videos what is very important when we are auditing NGOs and what NGOs should be able to take note of to avoid the refunds to donors for the already spent funds or incurred costs. And key amongst them, which I have seen in the different or various organizations that I've looked at, is staff costs. So what are staff costs? When you're talking about the NGOs and the staff costs, these relate to the costs incurred on employees or expenses incurred in terms of salaries and anything associated with salaries, among which is the statutory deductions. Yeah, so anything that we pay employees and we put it under the budget line called staff costs qualifies as a staff cost. And what is the support that auditors usually look out for or donors expect to see or expect auditors to see when they are testing this particular cost? So we expect to see various documents, which include, among others, timesheets, payslips, proof of payment, that is a bank statement or maybe cash if you're paying your people by cash. If you're paying by bank, a bank statement, or those who use other systems, Bionic, we expect to see proof that indeed this money was paid out to the respective people. So timesheets keep a record of number of hours worked on a particular project in various months or weeks, depending on what the organization chooses to. Yes, you could prepare the timesheets weekly, could decide to prepare the timesheets monthly, but at the end of the month, before paying the salaries, the total of these timesheets, the total number of hours worked on these timesheets, is usually what the donors expect you to charge the particular project they are funding. And I've seen in most cases this results into very many problems and inefficiencies on the side of the auditees, the organizations, where the organization is not in position to provide an accurate timesheet, and in the end, even when the costs were incurred, but because there is no proof, there is no support, they are asked to refund the money that the donor had supported them with, as these costs are disallowable without support. So how do we then go about it? How do we prepare the timesheets to ensure that they meet the expected standards of the donor? To start with, always inquire from the donor and seek to understand what they mean by the timesheets as an organization, and ensure that from the word go, you know what is expected of you from the donor and how the timesheet should be done. Let the timesheets not be a surprise when the auditor comes or is asking you to provide them, and you're like, I've never had that. What is that? Of course, ignorance is no defense. Either way, you will have to pay for it. Yet in reality, you've incurred these costs. So what are the qualities of a good timesheet? Yes, for some organizations, they do have the timesheets, but these timesheets do not speak to the reality of the amounts that are being paid out to employees, still which results in a certain portion not corresponding with what the timesheets say, being disqualified, hence asked to refund the particular amounts in question. So what are the qualities of a good timesheet? 1. The timesheet should be able to show the name of the employee, the particular employee ID if the organization has them, then the name of the organization, just to give comfort to the reviewer, be it the auditor or any other third party, that indeed these timesheets belong to this organization. The timesheets should have the number of hours worked on the project. If you have several projects, you can include them and apportion particular hours to each project. Then a good timesheet should have the total number of hours worked. Like, don't only have maybe only the hours worked on project A. Let's say project A for the month, you only worked 10 hours. Don't have a timesheet showing only 10 hours. Have the timesheet all the total number of hours worked in a month. So if you're working on various projects, have them, but each project only allocate the time that you have worked on it. This gives a true picture of what percentage or what proportion of the time have you allocated to a particular project. So when we are calculating the salary costs, it becomes very easy to apportion, where you get only the number of hours worked, divide by the total number of hours worked in the month, and times the gross salary or the gross amount in the contract. Key to note also, a good timesheet should be signed, or should have, if they are manual, ensure that there is a position for signing by the preparer and the reviewer. If you have the approver, still have it there and let those responsible people sign, and let them sign in time for the contract to also make sense. Don't pay salaries on 25th and then you have the timesheets signed on 30th of the month. Ideally, much as you have the timesheets, they are not serving purpose. So let the reviews, let the preparation, let the authorization happen before the payment of salaries. Because ideally, what we are paying for is the number of hours worked in a month. So if you have it approved and everything prepared after the month has closed and you've paid, then it also does not achieve its intention and will automatically be queried by the reviewers. Then another good quality of a timesheet, ensure to include a brief description of the activities worked on. Don't just put maybe 1st July and then you put hours. Exactly, someone is interested in seeing what were you doing. It justifies more and it leaves no room for many questions and a lot of back and forth. So another key thing is ensure that your timesheets are dated by the different individuals that sign on them, that is the preparer, because the reviewer or the third party is interested in when these timesheets were prepared, when these timesheets were reviewed, and when they were authorized if there is a third individual doing the approval. This is basically to ensure that the control is actually happening before the payment is done. Because among other reasons, the timesheets, they help to avoid overcharging the different projects or the donors or misusing of funds yet the actual amount of energy or work done on that particular project is less. Also, to avoid ghost employees, where you just see payments and you can't see any trace of the work done. So it needs to be as elaborative as possible. I have really seen organizations burdened and a lot of back and forth in trying to assure the donor that indeed these funds were spent with no timesheets, because usually the donor wants proof that the costs being charged or the funds being spent are based on actual costs and not lump sum amounts that can't be supported with anything or by anything. So that's a timesheet, and I know the first time may not be as straightforward, but once you follow through, you will get it right and it will be of great importance. You will pass, this will also help you to reduce the number of queries you have under staff costs. Ensure that the contracts are drafted very well and the costs that are being charged on the project, when you do the calculation of the hours worked and the total hours in the month times the gross salary, they should equal to the amount you're charging a particular project. Yes, and still in relation to this timesheet issue, ensure that your contracts are always your personnel files or the employee files are always updated with the current salaries that you're basing on to calculate the costs that you're allocating in the different projects or in the transaction listings. This is because if you do not update, you're going to have audit findings, you're going to have a lot of explanations to do, you're going to have different results on the calculation if someone decided to rerun the same calculation. So ensure to have updated records in your employee files and do the timesheets rightly and correctly to avoid back and forth, and also to secure your already got donors, because all that donors need is credibility and the fact that they can trust that the funds they are giving you are being spent on the right cause. So if you have any questions regarding timesheets and how you can nail it in the first go, and how to avoid findings in relation to staff costs, are how you can prepare your records, how you can prepare your timesheets, how you can allocate your staff costs without having problems with the donor or the auditors, feel free to reach out in the comment section. Or you can also share your story of how it has been. Have you faced any challenge in regards to the auditors or the donor expects to see or to find on ground? So if you're someone in an NGO, someone who is conducting this audit, someone who is looking for a pass in an audit, and someone who is looking to add value to the organization you are working in, please hit the like button, share the video, subscribe, and let's stay connected to learn more, add value, secure those funds, increase the credibility by having right reports. And I will also be explaining some of the findings or some of the reasons why some audits or some organizations do get adverse opinions, do get disclaimer of opinion, do get qualified opinions, and I'll be explaining in detail what all those relate to in the next videos. Stay tuned and see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.